So you're going to come into this report called Class C to Sage, and I had already changed the dates, but anytime you come back in, you'll move the dates to the next period that you'll be importing. So for the first part of this month, we imported from the 1st to the 18th, and now to finish out this month, we need to import from the 19th to the 30th. And so that's what we've done here. And I'm actually going to save, so it saves those date ranges in there. And so now what we need to do is, looking at this, we can see that the numbers look pretty good, but there's two things that we have to import in order to get this to exactly how we want it. So there are Class C IDs and doc numbers here, but we need to get some information from Stay Classy and from authorized.net in order to make that updated. So first we're going to go to Stay Classy. And we're going to just pull a transactions report from the 19th to the 30th. Again, just like in Salesforce. So we're going to go to transactions. And then just set the filters for the 19th to the 30th. Oops. And then we're going to export. And what we're getting here are the transaction IDs and what type of card they use, because the type of card they use gives a special ID for Sage, and they need to know that information. Oh, I pulled out the wrong report. I need to export all columns. So when you click this, do all available columns so that the credit card information shows up. So you can remove all the other fields except for that transaction ID and the card type. And then you'll just copy and paste these two fields and go to Apsona. And we're going to update donation records. So we're going to go to the donation tab and then import update. And then we'll click update and then say Class C donation ID, because that's that transaction ID that we pulled over, and paste. So we're going to make sure it's update, look up by Class C donation ID, tab, and then don't overwrite with null values. And then we'll hit next. And this transaction ID is that Class C ID. In this, there's a field called card type. We'll omit erroneous records and hit next. And then import. And then done. So what that did was, the doc number is what we load into Sage, and the doc number is set by what type of card they used. So when we did that, it's going to update all those different doc numbers, and you'll see now some are blank. And what that means is it's a different type of card, and we have to get that different type of card information from authorized.net now. So we have to do the same exact thing in authorized.net, and we'll import again with the similar data. We'll go in authorized.net. We will sign in. And then we'll do a search and then do from the same sort of pay periods. So the 19th to the 30th. And then search. And then we'll say download to file. Do the bottom one, which is expanded fields with comma separated, and include the column headings. So that's going to download into a text file, which we'll then have to open up. We'll have to open up an Excel file and open up that text file so it opens up in Excel. So we'll go to downloads, and then that'll be our most recent download, 7/1 at 10:11. And then open. And then it's going to ask us how we want to set up this Excel file. And so since we had it bring over as a CSV file, what that means is it's comma delimited. So we're going to select delimited and then select next and then do comma because that's what separates each column. Take out that tab one and just have comma and then click finish. So now what we're going to do is we need the transaction ID and the authorization code. The authorization code is what's going to replace those doc numbers on all the ones that are blank. So we can delete everything else. And do the same thing that we did before with Class E. So this transaction ID, though, is actually a different field. It's not the Class E ID. It's the payment transaction ID field on a donation record. So we're going to come in, do import update. We're going to create a new lookup, and we're going to get that payment transaction field. Payment Gateway Transaction ID is the name of it. So we'll click the create new and then check that box. And that's what we're going to use to find the right records to update and update with that authorization code. So we're going to take this, do tab, it's all the same, and then next. And then what that is that payment gateway transaction ID. And this is the authorization code. And it already sets, but you can go in and find authorization code if it doesn't set. So we'll omit erroneous records, hit next, and then hit import. And then done. So then we'll come back here and we'll hit run report again because there's a formula in place that says based off of the card type, list this as the doc number. And in some cases, when it's the right card type, that doc number is the Class E ID. But in all these blank cases, it's going to be the authorization code from authorize.net because that's the type of card that warrants that code. So we'll hit run report. And you'll see all those filled in, except for some. And then what we'll do is when we export this to import, the Class E donation ID will just be copied over into that column for all the ones that are blank. And I'll show you how we do that. So now what we need to do is go in and see the instances where these codes are blank. And there's quite a few this month, actually. But when the GL code is blank, the department code and the category code are also blank. So what we can do is update those via Apsona. So we're going to go into donations, the tabular view, just like all of our other filters. Then select Sage, and then Sage again. And then we can do that same thing here. So we're going to look at instances where the GL code is blank. We need to change this to last month. Okay, so then what we can do is we can look at one of the records from last month and see what these different codes are, and it's pretty straightforward. So most of these are going to be ambassador checks, so they have a certain code. So we can do all the ones that are ambassador checks. And that'll be a majority of them. Okay, so that's all of those. And so now what I'm going to do is just open up one of my files from last month, or you can look at a similar campaign donation record from a previous month as well. What we'll do, pull up the file. So the last one we did was June 18th. We'll pull in that one. And we can get these codes right from here. So right here, we can see from the campaign name that that's a ambassador track. So we know the GL code is 40,008. So we can go back here, update checked, GL code. We
Hey,
know we
Eric,
need, yep.
quick question. I think the ones on the bottom, did they get checked off too when you did that?
Good thought.
I think they did.
When I did your trick.
Or maybe not. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Good thought though. So we're going to update. You can see from this list that the GL code, the category code, and department code are blank. So we know that the GL code is 4008, and we look at the department code is 30, and the category code is 506 on all of those. Those are the numbers for ambassador checks. So we'll go GL code, department, and then category code. And again, you can get those from here. So the category code is 506 and the department code is 30. So 40,008. So we're going to update all those records. And then now we'll remove all of those as well. So now we're left with just some general ones. So general donations and chapter checks. So let's take out the chapter checks next. And there's not very many of them. So we go back to here and we can find a chapter check. The chapter check is 4006. The category code is 532. and the department code is 30. So 532 and 30. Okay, so now what we need to do are the rest of them. This one is actually, we missed this one. That one's 4,008, 506, 30. So we have gratitude, donation page. We'll do the donation pages first. So we can just do a search and do donation page. And here we've got 4,100 for the category code and 10. And that's actually going to be the rest of these. The GL code is 40,000. The category code is 100. And the department code is 10. And then update. So now if we go back to our report and run the report, we can look at these columns and see which ones are missing anything, if anything, at this point. And everything should be good except for there's one other column that we'll have to update called the Sage account. Program code's good. Category code should be good. Base code. The category code or the phase code and the Sage account code are similar fields in Sage. The phase code is used for some situations and the Sage code is used for others, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But we should be missing some Sage accounts. The Boston dinner and which I'm not sure how this one came. So these ones might already be in Salesforce. We might not need to update them.
Hey, Eric.
Yep.
That person actually, I think Michelle was using the link to pay off pledges.
Oh, yeah, yep. So let's look back at that gift. Itay or hard. Oh, yep, that's not classy. And then this one, Pam and Ted Coomer, Nicaragua. So this one is one I think we have to add. Yep. We only have one gift so far. So what we have to do at this point, for you, you can take the name of this campaign and give it to James, and he will add it to Sage. And then what you'll do is once he adds that to Sage, you'll take that number he's given you and put it in the Sage account for this campaign and any other campaigns that are a part of this team.
Great. Okay.
So I'm just gonna go in and add them, and I'll have it on the recording too, and show you how that works.
Okay.
So we're gonna open up Sage.
Ahora lo que tenemos que hacer es también confirmar si ella va a cobrar.
And it just takes a little bit to start. So again, you can give this to James, but the way that you go in and add this is you click accounting setup and then go on the chart of accounts. And so what that is that's the account number in Sage. So when we put this donation in or revenue into Sage, it knows what account it belongs to. So what we'll do is we'll click new, and then we'll use the wizard to add. So we can look, and we know it's the phase code. And we can look at what the last one is, which is 1005. So this will be 1006. And then it takes a little bit. You have to put the title in, but I always hit next. We'll call it Pam and Ted Kumert. And we'll go down to none. Next, and then finish. So then what we can do is come back to here and say that the Sage account is 1006. And we'll come back to our report here, click run report, and then we don't have any blanks there. So now what we need to do is just get this ready for Sage. So we're ready to export. So we'll sort this to make it the easiest for us to update. So we know that we need to move all these Class C IDs over to this doc number where that's blank, and it's only the first 10 or so. So now we're going to hit export details. Export. And actually, I did the wrong thing there. You should do CSV because that's what we're going to import into Sage. And it's easier just to do it from the beginning. So the very first thing we can do is copy that in. And now what we're going to need to do is there's very specific rules for how you can import into Sage. But the very first thing we're going to do is where there isn't a Trek group name, we have to bring over the name for the non-Trek merge. So we're going to just sort this field, Trek group name, and we'll scroll down. And we're going to bring all these over because they don't have a Trek name. And then once we do that, we can delete this column, the non-Trek merge. So now what we're going to do is work to clean up these names so that we can import them into Sage. So there are some rules. This is called the description field in Sage. And before we do anything else, we have to import the names of these contacts, these donors, into Sage so that they have an account in Sage so that we can attach the revenue to their name. but there are some rules that we have to follow. The description can't be longer than 30 characters, and the name can't be longer than 20. And there can't be any special characters in there, like I'll see if there's any that stick out. And usually there's a couple. And when I say special characters, characters that aren't normally in a basic keyboard. Okay, there aren't any actually. So now what we'll do is we'll work on getting these smaller. So we're gonna pull in a formula, and I actually just have it bookmarked because I can't ever remember it. So we'll go to the bookmark, which is there we go. So what we're going to do is this one that is the left, and then you have the column name and then the number of characters. So we're going to do left, oops, left A2, which is actually, we're going to do O2 and then 20. And then we'll sort like that, copy, and then you have to paste them as normal values so that it's not the formula. So that when we delete this other column, we don't lose all of those values. So we're going to delete this column now, and we're going to do the exact same thing here, which is the left 20 formula. And again, I just copy and paste it. So we're going to do P2, 20, same thing, copy, paste the normal values, and then contact. So now what we're ready for is to create the contact file. So we're going to copy and paste these, and I'm just going to use one of my files from a previous month and save over it. So this one's called the customer import, and we have these two columns that we're going to copy. And we'll see if there's more or less contacts, or less. Delete that. And then you can see my naming convention at the top, June 18th, which is the day that we did the import. The 15th is the year, and then customer import. So we'll click File, Save As, Desktop, or wherever you're saving it before you send it to James.
Hey, Eric. So
Yep.
how did you get the customer import? Where did you import that from? Salesforce or?
Yep, it's from Salesforce. It's just the donor
I see.
name.
Got it. Okay.
And we can go over that again. So then we have, it's June, but then we're doing the last, is there 30 days in June? Yeah, June 30th. 15, and then we'll save. So that file is now ready to give to James to import into Sage. And I'll actually show you how that import looks right now, since we have Sage open. So we'll click File, Import, and then the customer data is called an AR in Sage. So We have a DEF file, which is the map that allows us to import into Sage, and that one's called the AR. So we're going to hit open, and then we're going to go in and find that customer data on my desktop. So we'll click on local disk over here and then go to my desktop folder. We're doing the June 30th 15 customer import. And then once you hit import, then it starts the import. And you can see the progress here at the bottom. And then once this is done, it'll pop up and tell us if we have any errors, if there's any, unique codes in there or anything like that. And then we can come back and adjust. And no code, no errors popped up, so that means we're good. So our file is good to go. So now we're going to come back to the data, and we don't need this field anymore, the contact. We do need the Sage name, which is last name, comma, first name, but we don't need this one anymore. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at a previous month, which is the June 18th Class C import, and copy over some of these columns, which we're going to do the grant one, which is the last column. And the grant is always 10. And now what we need to do is there's some leading columns that we need to add in here, and I just copy them over from month to month. So the doc number is actually always column I, and right now it's column A in our other documents, so we need to add in that many columns. So we'll go into I. So we'll just copy over the first line of all of those columns. And then we need to change these dates to be the same as our import file name. So this is James, his initials, 6 for the month of June, 30th for the date that we did the import, 15th for the year, and CC for credit card. And we can just make that for all of them. BP for all of them, USD for all of them. And then we need to make this June 30th. Something weird is going on. Sometimes this happens in my Excel when I have to click on to another document to get it to work. So we do the same here, and then the same here. That again happens. It's happening again. See if it works. And then CR, non-rev, N. And then we're about ready to go. There's a couple more things that we have to do. So we have some different fields here that we need to add because each piece of revenue there's a debit record and a credit record. So that's what we need to do now is duplicate this so that we have our debit records and our credit records for each of them. So I'm going to go into Sage and see, okay, our last two are debit and credit. And what we currently have showing is credit, and now we need to add all the debit. So we're going to add in a debit column in front of the amount. Call it debit, and then we'll do 0 because these are all the credit records. We're going to call this one credit. Okay, so now we're set there. Now what we need to do is copy all this and make it so there's duplicate records for each one, and then we'll make a tweak to the GL code and to the phase and Sage accounts. So the phase code, if you look at the last month, the phase code is the higher code. The phase code is the lower number. The Sage code is the higher. So if we look at 1100 here, 405 is the current phase code, where 1003 is the Sage code. So on the credit records, the Sage code is showing. On the debit record, the phase code is showing. So when we copy, we'll account for that. So we're just going to copy everything. And then just go a couple lines below. We can actually delete this report data. We don't need that. Okay, so now what we need to do is every single debit record has a code of 11,000. And so we just do that and then fill that in for all those copied records. And so from before, the Sage code is the credit records, the phase code is the debit records. So we just need to merge those fields in together and say which one is the winner. So the phase code is the debit records, the Sage code is the credit. So right here we know that these are the phase codes and these are the Sage codes. So we double check again. The Sage code is the credit record, the phase code is the debit record. So what we'll do is we'll copy in, and for some reason I keep mixing them up. The phase code is the debit record. So what we have to do is we have to switch these columns around. So the 0 should actually be in this right column, the amount should be in this left column. So we'll just copy all these. And then just make sure they're lined up and paste. And then these are zeros. So look back to compare again. The zeros are matched up, the amounts there. The Sage code is the credit record, the phase code is the debit. So we just basically have to say, okay, the Sage code is, again, the credit record, the phase code is the debit. So we're just going to copy all these phase codes over. And then move it into the Sage code column. And then we can actually delete this whole column. So that's lined up now. And now our file is basically ready, but now we're just going to sort by doc number so that all of the records are next to each other. So doc number, custom sort, expand the selection, doc number, and then okay. So now you see everyone has two. There's the GL codes for both the credit and the debit records, and the Sage account information for both. They're different. So everything is set. You can always review a previous month's file just to see that your columns are the same. There's W amount of columns. There's the debit and credit fields that you added. You merged the Sage and phase account fields, and you have different GL codes, and you've added in the A through H columns to the document. So now once you've done this, it's ready to go. You can just save it in the same naming setup as before, as your previous files, which is the month name, the date, and the type of file that you're importing. So we're doing June 30th, 15, Class E import. And then we're going to hit save. Yes. And then at that point, you have your two files that you can share with James. But we'll go ahead and import this just to finish out the process. So these are the CRs. The AR are the customers, the CR is the revenue data, and that's the map to import. So we'll select that, and then we'll go in and we'll select our local file from my desktop for the Class C data. And then we'll go into June 30th, 15, Class C import, open, and then you'll watch the progress at the bottom, and then the errors will pop up at the end if we have any to correct. Which, fingers crossed, hopefully we don't. Because if you do have errors, then you have to delete your import file from Sage and then correct those and then re-import. And it looks like we do have some errors.